Okay. Well, this is going to be chapter 24. We're going to see some more character development, but we are slowly moving into the urban side of things and science fiction later on. Yeah. So some of these next chapters are very telling of the main character's motivations and his interests, and I think you'll really see that with some of these chapters I'll be reading. So this is chapter 24, 第24章, 款项到账. Yeah, I learned the Chinese titles just because I have to copy them for the YouTube videos. But yeah, it's not a main point of interest in mine. So according to the Google Translate, it just means the arrival of money. It has to do with the Chinese scholarship system and being the regional champion. Okay, so let's begin. In the following time, Lu Yuan briefly recounted the situation in his home to Seng Xing. So Seng Xing is one of his professors or teachers. Of course, some artistic processing has been done in this, so I think it would be called uh, it's like artistic interpretation or the word eludes me. It's like creative liberties. Has been done in this. That is, Lu Yan did not want to use part of the money. Yeah, that is, Lu Yan did not want to use part of the money to start a company by himself. Um, so yeah, he's creating a game and he needs cash. But I think the Google Translate is trying to say he probably wants to use it. I don't know. The way that Chinese uses not or bu is a little bit special, so the Google Translate comes out a little weird. Fortunately, he will sell his own game next, and Lu Yan did not owe more than 3 million yuan. That's still a large amount of money. What is that? $50,000, I think. A huge sum of money, but only three to 400,000. He simply needs the money to pay off his father's debt. But even so, my eyes were a little moist, especially after hearing Liu Dongming was once a high school teacher. She was almost filled with righteous indignation. Um, why doesn't this kind of bastard divorce him? He's talking about Liu Dongming's wife or his mom. Why do I feel like you're scolding me, Teacher Sung? Lu Yan bit his lip. But he's my dad. Reading some of the comments. Although my dad is unable to take care of himself by my life of electrotherapy, I can't say. This kind of person is in vain as a father, Songxin bit her lip and said angrily. Although she's not married now, she is a single nobleman. But she has already reached the age to discuss marriage, and it's even more painful for this kind of scumbag. For a while, she forgot Lu Yan's original intention to consult her. What is the return of the money? The father's dead or the old calendar? Let your mother divorce him, and then the house is sold and moved. How can such a bad person have you like this? A good son. I think a lion son a lion father does not beget a dog son. Is I think the famous Chinese saying. Um, which is not necessarily true. But yeah. Theoretically, you can just like sever family ties. But Lu Yan could only sigh for a long time. Miss Sun, my family has their own difficulties. I have broken bones and connected tendons. Can I try again? That's an idiom that I don't recognize. Only then did Seng Xin realize that she had committed the old problem of simple and deep talk. After all, she was a teacher by profession, and sometimes she was really good at being a teacher. This kind of housework is indeed not something I can interfere with. So Seng Xin could only bit her lip gently on the phone. Well, in theory, there is a process for college entrance examination scholarships. But if you have a special family or circumstance, is what the word's supposed to be filling, you can apply to school in advance. If you don't dislike it, I can apply for you. But I can only help you fix the school. The scholarship in the district depends on you to find the neighborhood committee. I'm not sure about this. This teacher's son is really a knife-mouth tofu heart. This is a famous Chinese idiom that I looked up. It just means her words are cutting, but she is a heart of gold. Is basically something like that. I think. Lu Yan couldn't help but sigh again, and he exchanged a few words with Seng Xing. By the way, he agreed to wait until his side was busy before fulfilling the promise to invite dinner, and Lu Yan hung up the phone, inviting to a meal, Chinese custom to celebrate or when you owe someone. Like when you do someone a favor. According to Seng Xing, the school's rewards can be obtained within 3 days at the earliest, as long as they're familiar with the school's work process and have acquaintances in the system. Of course, Seng Xing is naturally an acquaintance in the system, right? In fact, Lu Yue and Seng Xing are only friends of several sides. The first meeting is quite unpleasant, but they have the experience of suffering together in the nest of the sky and the nest of heaven. That's a building in Los Angeles in this fictional world, I think. I'm not sure if there's a real life equivalent. Especially the connection with Su Mei, and now Lu Yue is the top prize in Xinke City. So many things are easier than before. Putting down the phone, Lu Yan stretched his waist. Almost overnight, everything disappeared, and Lu Yan could not help but think of the famous saying. The physical building has been completed. There are only 2 small dark clouds in the sky. We only need to do some minor repairs. Now, this is a very famous saying from a physicist, I think. Uh, is it? Is it? I think it's. I think yeah. So it's about William Thompson. His name is called. He's his so he's a mathematician. Mathematician William Thompson. His name is also Baron Kelvin. And he predicted. He didn't predict the end of physics, but he's very famous for a phrase, that specific phrase about like the end of physics, or there were 2 clouds that obscured physics at the moment. One was Einstein's special relativity, and the other was quantum mechanics, right? Which is very appropriate for a science fiction novel. Um, but yeah, that's a very very famous saying. Lu Yuan didn't really want to set up this huge flag in the same way, so he bit his lip, put the phone next to his computer. On the computer was the initial version of Tomorrow not coming in operation. Tomorrow hasn't arrived. On the dark ground of the ice and snow, small base crawler was moving forward with heavy load. Yeah, everything is still so far away. How can I stand still here? Lu Yan lay back on the bed, looked at the white ceiling above his head, and said softly, "Ah, yo." Dot 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 dot. XX Banks arrives. 120,000 yuan in whole. Lu Yan looked at the reminder on the phone and couldn't help but nod. Although Lu Yan had a relatively unreliable impression of Seng Xing, facts prove that Seng Xing was still very reliable in doing things. Under Seng Xing's guidance, after Lu Yan filled out several forms, it didn't take 3 days. 2 days later, he received the payment from the school. That's really, really quick. And it is a little more than the expected 100,000, which is 120,000. I don't know what role Seng Xing played in it, but it must have played a big role. Lu Yan originally wanted to take it from the reward. I gave part of it to Seng Xing, then I thought about it. Since Seng Xing is Su Mei's cousin, then her family definitely doesn't lack little money. Moreover, Seng Xing's help was only moral assistance, but if he gave her a kickback, it would become a bribe. Because there's a very embarrassing legal point. That is, the crime of accepting bribes is only established for state employees. However, what you did not expect that all public school teachers belong to state employees. In other words, many teachers do not realize if they take their parents' property and then show partiality to the students, they're actually guilty of accepting bribes. It's just that compared to other national staff, almost no one has prosecuted teachers for bribery, right? Gifts to the teacher. As for the reward from the school, Lu Yan returned to a relatively free state after he cooperated with the TV station for an interview. The content of the interview actually included learning methods, tutoring, and comments on this time. They always comment on learning methods of good students. Views on the college entrance examination, prospects for the future, and given that Lu Yan's learning method is not to be too tiresome, you can only avoid the importance and say little, and then resist the desire to advertise, and finally does not say that I'm doing it. A great game everyone is welcome to play together. If it's a brother, come and chop me. So some slogans probably. Of course, if Lu Yan really shouted this ad slogan, he wouldn't have to consider whether angry parents would swarm over him and put 10,000 feet on his back. Relates the question. At least it's not broadcasting after pinching this reel. So if he said that, he probably wouldn't get broadcasted. Of course, to get back to the subject, Lu Yan is at least a kind, good boy. For example, now he has filled out the last application form, summoned with Lu's mother, and walked out of the house. The progress of the game is still advancing in an orderly manner, but compared to the game itself, Luoyuan should now be concerned about a series of issues such as funds, companies, and trademarks. Out of various considerations, Luoyuan still prefers not to consult anyone on the matter of starting a company, and temporarily open the company by himself, even if it's a leather bag company, a shell company, basically, essentially. After all, he has many advantages in future legal affairs, commenting on his future background. Thinking about this, Luoyuan stopped an unmanned rental car at the door of his house and first went to the neighborhood committee and handed in the application form. In this regard, he asked the staff at the TV station and said there would be corresponding accommodations after talking about the situation at home. After filling out a few forms, Luoyuan received the second note of arrival shortly after. When it was confirmed that the money was actually in his account, Luoyuan's heart really let go. After all, he's basically working with a pinch. If he is stuck by the fund chain, it would be too embarrassing. Two sums of money. The school gave 120,000. The district rewarded 100,000, which is a total of 220,000. If the father is now at home, then the money may have to ask for his father's consent. As for now, Luoyuan has complete control over them. Luoyuan looked at the sun in the sky and stopped his second task. Destination, bang, withdraw money. And then you'll see some of that a little bit more continues on in chapter 25. But we'll get to chapter 26. One of my favorite first chapters of the novel. Besides, I think the prologue was pretty good as well. But chapter 26, I like the title.